Yes.
There was real systemic racism.
Denials from Team Trump, even as the Republicans point out.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Munson Steed, and welcome to another Rolling Out News Report. I'm joined by my co-host, Terry Shropshire. How are you, Terry?
How you doing, sir? What's going on?
I am great. Clearly, the exciting day has been a whole lot of things going on, new announcements. What are you hearing?
There's quite a bit. I mean, the news continues to go in fluidly. I'm hearing some very disturbing news from the medical practitioners and the connoisseurs who are saying that one is predicting another 100,000 deaths in just a couple of months, and that 19 states have seen a sharp rise in the cases of COVID-19 since Memorial Day. So just as I had feared and medical connoisseurs had predicted, the reopening early of the states prematurely have produced deleterious effects on the nation's health care system. So exactly what we expected.
I'm not certain that we're all taking as many precautions. I think it opened up, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to wear a mask. What do you think is causing the community to not wear masks, Terry?
I mean, I think there's several reasons. I just think that some people there's one group of people who are fatalistic. They just have this sense of fatalism. It's already predetermined, so I might as well just live my best life and have fun going out swinging. There's another people who don't believe what they cannot see. They can't see the virus as you can see the flu. See, you can almost see, you almost feel and see the effects of the flu within hours of catching it. So then you look differently and you feel differently. So not only do you know that you have the flu, other people can see that you have the flu. Whereas with this, there's an incubation period of up to 2 weeks, plus it germinates in the system, and then it sprouts sometime after that initial period of dormancy. So if you can't see it, you might look and feel perfectly healthy, and spreading the virus and incubating the virus, and you don't see it, so you don't feel it, so you don't worry about it. So there's a period of disbelief among another group of people. And then there's another issue of the fact that once the president and then the governors, starting with the governor of Georgia, reopened the state prematurely, everyone thought that everything was okay. Then the beaches opened. So it covered all demographics, but the one demographic that is inordinately impacted by this are, of course, African Americans and Hispanics. And those are the people who are filling up the Georgia hospitals at the rate of 80% at the last count from the CDC. So that is what I'm seeing that's going on. And I think that's what's contributing to the rise in the coronavirus cases again. So like some people predicted, it might not be a second wave in November or December. It might be a second wave starting this summer.
Maybe like even July, given that the protests have been going on for 14 days. So many of those individuals don't have masks. In addition, many of them are not social distancing, which is a methodology to definitely reduce.
Well, it's even larger than that. I mean, even the people who are exercising the democratic process, their democratic rights, going to the polls yesterday, you have masks on, and most of them have masks on, but the masks are not, it's not foolproof. You can still pass the virus from person to person if you're too close because of the mask, and the lines were like up to miles long. So it's hard to maintain social distancing when you're trying to vote and exercise the democratic process, and the people who are working at the polls don't have masks, and they're speaking directly into your face. So that's another problem.
I really think that that's a problem for all of us. But when we think about this problem, Terry, it seems like there isn't a unified front, even in our community, as it relates to your famous call, 6 feet, that we don't get it. We just really refuse.
Unknown caller.
What are your thoughts on that, community wise, distancing wise? What don't we get?
Well, like I said, I just think that people don't respond to external stimuli that they cannot see. So whether positive or negative, they don't have faith because they can't see it, and faith is the essence of substance hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So a lot of people don't have faith because they can't see it right away, and also conversely, they don't respond to something that they cannot see, even if it's going to save their lives. There's such a laissez-faire attitude being exemplified by too many people. And then you have another portion of the population, and I heard it right here from my neighbors, that they think it's fake. They don't believe that there is such a thing as a coronavirus, and they think it's fake. So they're not wearing masks. The people at the front office are not wearing masks. None of the management is wearing masks. The neighbors aren't wearing masks. So, it's just spreading. And they find out too late. Or, for right now, they're safe. But how long is that going to last? So I just think there are too many factors. It's the confluence of mutually agreeable circumstances combining to create this catastrophe that this medical doctor predicted, the epidemiologist predicted that, we're at 100,000. We just passed 100,000 late last month in May. But so between the end of May and the beginning of September, he is predicting another 100,000 people. So it's about to get interesting real quick.
I don't know. I think it's going to be sad. I think there'll be an additional sad. Obviously, have we passed the 2 million mark in the U.S. yet?
No, we haven't. I mean, we're close. I mean, it's like 1.97 million. So probably within the next 24 hours or less, we will surpass the 2 million mark for cases in the United States. So that's on the way. Meanwhile, as I look up, and I apologize for my eyes looking funny, as I look up at CNN and just see the 16th consecutive day of protesting, and people are on top of each other. They got masks on, but they're sitting next to each other. They're marching they're on top of each other. So the virus can go through the mask because it's microscopic in size. And just like the air can pass through the mask, the virus can pass through the mask if you're too close. There is no way that there's not going to be an explosion this summer. There's no way.
6 feet.
Yeah.
It seems improbable. I haven't seen 6 feet often on any of these marches recently. Not even the police are 6 feet.
That's deliberate. I mean, that's deliberate. I mean, they're not trying to be 6 feet. They're not really trying to keep you safe. Right now, they are enforcers. They're occupiers. So basically, it's like colonialism, or it's colonialism in the Black community, in the majority Black community. So they're not trying to keep social distance. They're not wearing masks. They're not wearing gloves, and so they're getting sick as well. But you're getting sick in the process, and because of comorbidity in the Black community, meaning that we already have pre-existing conditions that range from diabetes to obesity to
asthma,
heart disease, asthma and heart disease, that we're much more susceptible. And then combined on top of that, the fact that we don't have the same access to healthcare as our white counterparts. So that creates just a toxic brew. So it's just that's the reason why someone in suburban Atlanta, on the north suburban side, they said no, this only affects people on the south side. That's how confident white people are that they're going to, if they catch it. That's why they're getting together, because they feel like if they're going to catch it, they're definitely They don't have the cases of comorbidity that we do, so they're confident. Now, this is caught on tape. I need to find that video where this white couple said not only affects people on the south side, black people predominate on the south side of Atlanta, and then the north side is predominantly white. And they said it's not going to affect them because they don't have those cases of comorbidity. So I'm gonna try to find that video.
And it was in the Washington Post as well. We've got Mayor Jerome Prince here from Gary.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Not bad at all. I'm trying to get a little video going so you guys can see me. Here we are.
Little video. You got a big video. It's good, man. It's good.
Thank you.
Who'd ever thought? Welcome to Rolling Out News Report. How are you?
Doing pretty well. Thank you, sir.
I'm with Terry Shropshire, my co-host. We appreciate you coming on Rolling Out News Hour. The numbers are going up. For you mayors, this is a lot to deal with. Numbers going up and protest. What do you see as the future of urban cities given the situation that we now find ourselves in?
So I guess to add to that, the fact that I'm about 150 days into a new job, can't forget that part either. But to answer your question, I certainly see a lot of change on the horizon. But like many of us, I can't quite put my finger on what that looks like. You know, we've been at the forefront of this since probably the beginning of March. And at that particular point, we hadn't had a case in the city. In fact, there wasn't a case even in Lake County. But just looking at the trends nationally and certainly around the country, we anticipated and prepared for the worst, I guess you could say. And to that point, we've certainly shared the information and tried to stave off the infection rate as much as we could. But like many African-American cities are still experiencing a rise in the cases, as you just suggested.
You know, I find that the lack of unity from a national perspective, it appears that that's what we're up against because there's not one unified voice.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Nah, go ahead, man.
Well, I was going to say, so the lack of unity comes from the lack of a clear voice, as you just articulated. There was no message nationally. And so that certainly translated. And in many instances, even today, we sort of find ourselves, in some instances, making it up as you go. But and I say that loosely because we're certainly using empirical data that represents our constituency. But even throughout the state, the stats and the data that was at first or that was reported initially certainly didn't consider the nuances or the variances or the variables rather in our community. And so we found ourselves enlisting the help of some statisticians. And certainly I have the luxury of being one of the communities in Indiana, possibly. In fact, there's only 3 that still employ a health commissioner. And so to that degree, our people are benefited in that we have the most accurate, most up-to-date, knowledgeable information coming from a healthcare professional. And whatever I can lend to the process, certainly I've been doing as well.
Jerry?
Well, Mayor, welcome to Rolling Out News, and thank you for your presence, and congratulations on your new position.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. What do you think? There are many perspectives being, proffered by medical practitioners and political pundits and the like about what is the reason that people are not adhering to either the mandates or the recommendations being offered by the state, local, county, and federal governments in terms of how to stave off the coronavirus. But it's almost mystifying. I wanted to know what your perspective is and what messaging are you putting out there to try to keep people safe as much as possible? Because people have their own free will. This is a democratic society. You don't have to listen. You can go out there and just die if you want to. You know what I'm saying? I mean, as pathetic as that sounds, that is the truth because it's happening.
And so that's definitely been the challenge here. I contributed to a number of factors, just lack of knowledge, certainly, lack of lack of interaction with healthcare professionals on a regular basis in our communities. But mostly, I think it's largely attributed to a lack of direction coming from the federal level. Because as you know, and we've discovered, they've known about this for quite some time. And to this point, in several ways, I mean, there's two mixed messages even coming from the national level. And certainly if we were, not wise and certainly gullible enough to listen to the advice of our president. And I mean that as sincerely as I possibly can, because he's just simply giving out bad information. And fortunately, there's persons on his staff like Dr. Fauci who, are committed to the truth and sharing data. And so here locally, we've just sort of learned everything that we possibly could. Let me kind of take you on a timeline. So it's March the 11th, somewhere about, and Dr. Walker, who's my healthcare administrator, and I have a conversation. And I asked him to reach out to the state and ask for testing. And this is before we had one case here, right? And we're just sort of being proactive, because if this thing is anywhere near what they say it is, we certainly want to be able to test, or at least that's what we thought was important at that particular point. But, the answer to that was a absolute no, and it didn't fit the model that the state had at that particular time for testing. And at that point, they simply wanted to test people who absolutely had explicit symptoms, of this virus. And even in doing so, the testing was selective in which communities they selected. I mention all that to say that as we fast forward, certainly we've been able to acquire testing, at least to a degree. But what we've also discovered is that there's more to it. And so there's the level of testing that you perform. There's should you get regular testing or antibody testing? And the story actually hit home sort of personally. I don't know if you all caught it, but it certainly hit the national wire and was covered in the Washington Post and that. But Dr. Walker actually contracted COVID-19 himself, which prompted me to get tested with, I didn't have any concern that I was infected because I felt completely safe. But what we learned about it is that you can carry this virus for a significant period of time without any symptoms, as was the case for Dr. Walker. I'm pleased to report that he is still the picture of health, and he came through it okay. But in the interim, and this is where it really got sort of personal for us, his mother and father, who he relocated here from Mississippi in an effort to try to keep them safe, right? And based on my recommendation that he go get them, they both end up contracting COVID. Both our father's doing much better. His mom is now 196 hours off of a ventilator. He sent me a video a while ago where she's actually speaking words. And so, we're sort of ecstatic about that. But we've had some personal experiences. And back to Terry's question, we've just tried to inform our population. But also, Terry pointed out that you can't beat anyone and make them do it. And so we just try to provide as much data relative and make sure that it's accurate to people. And in fact, we put out a weekly or a daily written update that goes out to the social media and to the local media and on our cable access channel, in addition to putting out a weekly video update, just trying to keep people as informed as we possibly can.
Yeah, it appears that Black mayors have a whole lot to do these days with health. I mean, it's now on the radar. Obviously, we hope that it'll be part of your agenda moving forward. But you guys got slammed, like blindsided, and didn't have the control that we traditionally would understand a mayor would have. That has to be uncomfortable when you talk about states leading and managing and in some cases taking over cities right now.
It's extremely uncomfortable, but I view that in a couple different ways, and so I choose not to necessarily use the term leader when I describe myself. I consider myself to be a problem solver, if you will, and that's certainly what we are experiencing. Are a myriad of problems. One of the things that we haven't discussed, and, I'm certainly not an expert in this area, but I'm wise enough to know that it's something that exists in our community and all African-American communities across the country, in fact, and that is the reluctance to acknowledge that we have mental health issues also. And so I see that as becoming one of the prevalent issues. Probably just as soon as we get past this one, I think you're going to start to see more conversation about it, certainly as it relates to policing in our communities and the relation to mental health, but just mental health, period, I think is an issue that we need to just buckle down and realize that it's something that affects probably a significant percentage of our community and something that we should not be afraid to embrace and learn more about and address as well.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I think everybody in our community, it's amazing that many of the individuals are talking about the level of trauma that our community has had for 400 years. And that trauma is passed on from generation to generation. So I applaud the effort to talk about mental health and to create some type of practice inside our community for mental health, because yes. I think that it's much needed.
I agree.
Question for me, Mayor Lightfoot and Black Lives Matter Plaza. What were your thoughts when you saw the mayor of DC make her move, and then the mayor of Chicago saying, I'm not going to open up even though I could? What did you think of those two soldiers and sisters as mayors?
I think your sentiment or your description is appropriate. Certainly two people who are in the fight, too, who I've had the luxury or at least the opportunity of meeting both, and two ladies who I certainly respect. But yeah, in this particular climate, especially considering just the tension that exists around race relations, and considering that Mayor Lightfoot, even though she has a very diverse community, as well as Mayor Muriel there. But to make such bold statements, I think speaks volumes to their leadership styles. Personally speaking, I think that every community certainly is different, and to that extent, let me just point out the two prevalent issues that we seem to be addressing these days are racism and police, and specifically the use of force. And while both of those are issues in our community, I don't believe that they're issues as much as they are, or the racism part of it, as much as it is in those two communities that you mentioned. Now, I'm certainly not suggesting that it doesn't exist. We've dealt with this, countrywide for all of our lives, certainly, and our parents and grandparents and that. But my point is I think it plays out a little differently in other communities. And to that extent, we really don't have blatant instances that we can absolutely identify as racist policy, because everybody's mostly Black here for that matter. But to that extent, when you start to look at the inner workings of, say, the police department, and the fact that there's a significant representation of non-African-American person, it only seems reasonable that there may be some internal issues of racism there. And so back to your original question, I commend both of them for taking those bold steps and representing their communities and the constituents that they serve.
Yeah, I enjoyed the Black Lives Matter Plaza. I think staging is a big issue in most cities, particularly staging protests. Atlanta definitely suffers from a really congested center town. So if CNN becomes the iconic place for protest, it is a total meltdown and really drains the system because it's just a congested area. So there are very few places to stage a protest, not even 2.5 blocks. So it's something.
So getting back to the issue of racism, obviously we have Black Lives Matter chapters, and I say that in plural here, and they've been active for some time. But here, like most places, you see that activity heightened when there's a particular issue. And in this instance, obviously, it was the death of Mr. Floyd. But prior to me taking office, there was a local issue here in which Black Lives Matter certainly got involved and continue to be. Unfortunately, I can't talk a lot about it because it's still under litigation. In fact, the investigation itself has not been concluded. But my point there being is that, when you talk about the different communities and we compare them, it's important to note what the driving or prevailing thoughts are of the community as it relates to it. And so to that extent, in a lot of instances, Black Lives Matter, a group I certainly respect, haven't necessarily been all that amicable with this administration as of yet, because they perceive us all as being part of the system who are condoning inappropriate behavior. But you still have to address that, and we have a responsibility to. And so while we certainly haven't been able to have the type of discussions or the level of discussions that I would like to, tomorrow morning, I'm actually engaging with them on a Zoom call, and I hope it goes better than my experience today. But yeah, we'll have them on and we'll listen. And to that extent, we'll certainly share what our plans are moving forward in terms of looking for reform in our police or public safety departments.
Well, that segues into my next point. You're a sports fan?
I used to be. I mean, I watch championship games, but
Okay.
I will. What do you got going on?
Okay. Well, in a way, because you ever see when a basketball player has to pivot and then turn in a different direction because he didn't expect to move by that defense. Because I imagine that when you were running your campaign and you came into office, you didn't imagine any of the stuff that is unfolding. It's unprecedented, and it took a lot of people by surprise. So you probably had to pivot on what you wanted to concentrate on to basically appropriate resources and time and energy into things that you never expected to happen. So what are some of the things that you're doing that preparing for this new era? You say you don't know exactly what it's going to look like on the other side of it, but still we must begin to put in place some processes to deal with it. So I know that's been kind of knocked you off your pivot, so to speak.
Absolutely. And pivot is one of my, that was my favorite sport. In fact, it's a term that I use often because, as you suggested, Terry, I find myself pivoting, quite often. And so as a city, we're certainly looking at our staffing size, or at least the size of our employment, our employees rather. In addition to that, we're looking at best practices and things that work in other communities that have not necessarily experienced pandemics, but have experienced reduced budgets and the need to adjust how they conduct business.
That's where that empirical data comes into play, huh?
Without question, but also you have to be fearless and not afraid to take chances in this position, because certainly as a new mayor, I never suggested that I had all of the answers, but I have an insatiable work ethic, and I've attempted to surround myself around knowledgeable folks who have experience in and outside of government in an effort to make the adjustments. And so as it turns out, this has been an undaunting proposition, but to that end, I think just generically speaking, I had a number of challenges that probably don't exist in most communities. And so we were preparing for change as we stated anyway. And, this, as you suggested, just caused for a slight delay in whatever directions that we wanted to pursue. But knowing, and having been on this earth for 55 years, I know that, things come and they change, and then we move on and we persevere and we find answers to our solutions, and we continue to conduct the business. And that's what we're certainly preparing for now.
For all those who are wondering where they should make urban investments, should we be considering Gary, Mayor? How and why for all of us? Because what I'm concerned with is we're going to sleep on cities like Gary when we should be, as a Black community in particular, buying blocks before other people beat us to buy blocks, and then we say gentrify, but you can't gentrify something you don't own. And
yeah. And so that reminds me of an op-ed I wrote a couple of years ago, and while I was the county assessor, and certainly having an understanding of property and property acquisition, I was encouraging folks to do exactly what you said. Let's participate in the tax sales. Let's buy this property, because Gary, I think, is at such a pivotal point that there's nowhere to go but up, right? But unfortunately, as you know, when that ascension starts, all too often people who are legacy residents get left out of the equation. And unfortunately, that's probably going to be the case in some instances, simply because we just tend to not take advantage of opportunities. And so, to answer your question, Gary is an ideal place to invest. And I like to consider it as a blank canvas, if you will. And I'll share just a little historical data, which I'm sure you all learned gentlemen are probably aware of. But over the past 40 years, this community the population in this community has declined about 55 to 60%. You couple that with the declination of the largest industry, and that was the steel manufacturer, in addition to the exodus of other industries and retail and operation. And this city is largely desolate. We're down to a population of about 70,000. At one point, our largest taxpayer paid about $147 million in taxes per year. They pay about $20 million in taxes now. And so in the 20 years that I've been involved, I've seen our general fund budget reduced from about $140 million to somewhere right around $42 million now. And that's sort of, those who know those numbers, and I didn't mean to just throw numbers out there, but those who are listening to this, and even if you don't, just the sheer veracity of the numbers that I stated, you could just about imagine what the results were. I say that to say now is the absolute opportunity. I sometimes say that Gary is the only place in the United States where you can buy a property from anywhere from $1 to $1 million, right? And so that's because of our geographic footprint. We sit on the southern tip of Lake Michigan, which makes us valuable within itself. We have 3 major rail spurs that run through here. We sit right at the crossroads of America with 8094 and I-65, which consequently stretches all the way down to where you guys are. So at the end of this broadcast, you can simply hop in your Volkswagen Jetta or whatever it is and come on down here and see for yourself and be a guest of mine. But there's unlimited opportunity at this particular time. But just as that is, I also see persons of other persuasions looking to take advantage of that. And in many instances, we're engaging those folks as we speak. But the opportunity is still prime right now.
Yeah, I just, we appreciate that. We appreciate you coming on. You got to come back and kind of continue to report, or at least allow us to know some very insightful information. Because I think people need to know the how. And I think we need to understand, and obviously you're a very learned and we appreciate your leadership, but we need to share with individuals who may never live in Gary how to invest today and how they can actually really, it's about a wealth move. It's not about you. It's about 5-10 blocks for 20 years from now.
Sure.
Manage your portfolio in a place where it can grow, given you're bottom fishing or at least investing, hoping for additional growth. So we want to appreciate and thank you for coming on, rolling out your insight, your vision, but also anytime you want to do an op-ed, feel free to provide that. We want to be here, and we want you to know that Rolling Out is always there for true leadership in our community, and we need modern thought and true leaders like yourself. So welcome to the hot seat, and welcome to being a mayor. We look forward to your vision being seen and manifesting in Gary. Thank you so much.
Gentlemen, thank you. Pleasure's definitely been all mine. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank my very good friend, Teru Brooks, who actually facilitated this arrangement.
Teru's the man.
So, yes, he is. Thank you both. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Prince. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Take care.
Great new vision, Terry, for sure. New leadership.
Yes. Oh, and I wanted to make sure that while I'm looking at it, is a top Harvard doctor who predicted another 100,000 deaths by September. So we're talking about the greatest minds in the medical field in the country. So I think that we need to adhere to that and just take precautions. And as we do that, we welcome on our next guest who needs to pivot his camera.
Hey, Todd, we need you to pivot your camera and turn on your sound for us, big guy.
Hi, how are you all? You need me to turn it perpendicular to what it is?
Yes, please.
The opposite of Beyonce, not to the left, to the left, to the left. We need it to the right, to the right. There we go.
All right, it's a little
All
more
right.
bouncing here, but hopefully this holds.
Well, how you doing, sir? It's a pleasure to have you.
Doing well, gentlemen. Thank you for taking the time to allow me to join you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Come on, Todd. You know, we need some insight. We need some numbers. We need a true understanding of socially this uprising is going on. How many days, Terry?
What that has been going on. I don't know the exact days. I know it's been going on since the end of February. Is that what you mean about how long this pandemic has been going on? Or are you talking about?
Actually, protests.
The protest. Protest. Oh, I'm sorry. Since Memorial Day, since the day after Memorial Day, the day after Mr. George Floyd died. He died on Memorial Day, and the protest began the very next day. So now it's in the 16th consecutive day that we've had protests or demonstrations or marches or a combination thereof without fail all over the country. It's been remarkable to see.
So, Todd, how would you describe the mood of the country, and what about this was anticipated by our leadership and communities?
Well, no matter where you are in the world, not far from your doorstep, there's someone who's carrying a sign that simply says, "Stop killing us." You just have to wonder where we are as a society when people are advocating for the most basic of rights, and that's just the right to live. And this isn't something that's just an American issue, it's an international issue you've seen, but we're particularly bad at protecting the lives of our people here in America. And that's entirely because of state-sponsored violence, but also because of the systematic deprivation of opportunity and disinvestment in our communities, as the mayor just mentioned, how he's trying to help the rebound due to the historic disinvestment. So this is something that was inevitable because of the continued abuse of our basic rights and humanity as a people. And I think it's borne out in the streets in terms of the pain, the heartache, the anguish, the suffering. People are tired. People are tired of being abused and mistreated and wondering if when they leave to go get some groceries or leave to jog or even stay in their homes, if they're safe and if they can be in a position to come home safely or remain in their home safely or just be safe at all, because the very people that we're paying to protect us are the very ones who are predators, who are killing us and putting us in a position where we're fearing for our lives. And this is coupled with the fact that we're already terrified by being exposed to the COVID, and we're terrified because we wonder if we're going to be able to keep food on the table. So you compile all those traumas, and I think it's inevitable that this sort of reaction was going to take place.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point that we, Black people, as taxpayers, are subsidizing the type of law enforcement incompetence and terrorism that's destroying our own lives. So we're paying for our own deaths. Is
We're
basically
funding our own oppression. There's no question to it. And I think to the mayor's point, it's important to do two things. One, not just change the systems, allow the laws that allow for the suppression to take place, but also change the actors. You need people in positions of authority when they have the opportunity to lead measures and to make sure they're implemented in a way that really respects our common humanity and our dignity as a people, that they're doing so. And I'm really grateful to have an opportunity to hear some of his vision, some incredible work he's doing.
Well, I think for us here, and we're going to have you come back, Todd, it's all about KPIs for us because we don't want to get lost. I think it's a losing conversation. I think somebody sent out an email that, oh, we got 1.6 billion pledged by this $1 trillion economy, and like how insulting. And people are announcing it like it's big money.
Right.
I mean, that's the offensive part. And you've got people fairly intelligent repeating it like it's a big deal. So how do we get measurable numbers? We obviously we don't want, I was thinking about Charlemagne, and he was asking, or really suggesting that we should have an ask for presidential candidate Biden. What are the KPIs that we think the Democratic Party and this president should have so that we could say, hey, here was how we're measuring your performance?
Yeah, there's no question. I'm sure the mayor could say this as well as anyone. If you show me your budget, you'll also be showing me your priorities. And there's no question when we're only getting 1% or 10% at most in the period of the greatest largesse, that's considered charity. When in fact, we're entitled based on our percentages of population to at least 15%. And we command 1.7 trillion, as you mentioned, in terms of spending dollars on a regular basis, just in the local economies in the Midwest. So I think, to your question, I think what we need to be demanding of presidential candidates or anyone who's running for office is outline to us your agenda to make sure that equal access to opportunity is something that is actually realized. What is your mandate as relates to spending per pupil for an educational system? What's your mandate in terms of providing equal access to capital for people trying to start businesses, communities of color? What is your about military and the overrepresentation of police and the disproportionate representation of African Americans in the criminal justice system, disproportionate representation of African Americans in the homeless population, the disproportionate representation of Black people in the jobless population. I mean, anywhere you go, if you ask people to visualize someone who's homeless, someone who's in prison, someone who's struggling to find a job, why does it always have to look like us? What is your plan to do something about that? And if they don't have anything meaningful, then they shouldn't be a candidate that's honestly considered. And Joe Biden in particular, more than any other candidate in recent history, he was saved by Black people in terms of where he was in terms of his candidacy and where he would have been, but for the support that he received in South Carolina, thanks to the support of Black people. So if there's ever a time for people of color to come together, and particularly Black people, to demand a vision that serves our needs, now is the time. And hopefully, at the very least, we can enunciate all those four basic categories: education, support for business ownership, public safety, and just respect of our basic rights. And if he fails to do that, then it's more pressure to find a vice presidential nominee who will hold him accountable and help bring him up to speed in terms of what's necessary to make sure we're also treated as American citizens as well.
I see. Yeah, I was thinking that, in my opinion, and I don't know what you think about this, but you can answer to this. I thought that it was more important if he was going to select a Black female, to get a Black woman on the Supreme Court, because if he gets her young enough, she could stay. Well, okay, but I'm saying in terms of priority list. So,
you never have to ask President Trump how many white people is he going to put on the list, right? I mean,
good point.
We always have to quote us and always have we have exceptionally of all races in this country. Let's access that and make sure that whoever is representing us, whether it be Supreme Court, vice presidential nominee, or the cabinet, is representative of the country in a meaningful way. And in this instance, I think there's particular pressure on Joe Biden to step up, because the backbone of the Democratic Party, which is African-American women, African-Americans at large, they're responsible for his resurgence. So a seat on the Supreme Court is one thing, but I think at the very least, there should be someone at the table helping make all those decisions. And if the most qualified person is Black for all these positions, they should be considered seriously and have an opportunity to be at that table.
Okay. Back to you, Mr. Steed. That's a good point. I mean, we don't have to ask them about prioritizing what kind of how many white people is going to place where. That is a good point. However, there's always a priority list still, and so I just think that at my focus is on something that can have, lasting generational impact instead of just maybe perhaps 4 years or at the least. So. It's just
there's two
something
things to
think
think
about.
about there. No, it's a perfect thought. I mean, let's not ignore the political realities of it. It's unlikely that everyone that Joe Biden chooses is going to be even of color, let alone African American. But at the end of the day, given his what's the best way to say this? His years, the number of years he's been on this earth, and his demeanor at this point, I think it's very important to find a vice president who, if something were to happen, that can step in and be able to perform. And I think this would be an opportunity to not only acknowledge Black women, but also to highlight that magnificence in the leadership of Black women by having a Black woman be his nominee as vice president, because in possibility, particularly if it gets the second term, that person will be the president.
Yes.
And I think it's,
yes.
I think in terms of generational impact, I think that, and there'll be many times that have appointing multiple Supreme Court judges based on the relative health and age of them as well. So I think if I were to prioritize, I would say vice president just for that reason, just because he's getting on in years, and I'm concerned about his overall health.
That's a good point, because it definitely would have came into play had Bernie Sanders won the nomination or, been the presumptive nominee. So yeah, great.
And Bernie Sanders is in much better health than Joe Biden, but that's still.
Yeah, we went from Obama, who was in his mid-40s, to this. Yeah. I mean, everybody's in their 80s and stuff, late 70s and 80s. So yeah, you're right. We do have to take that into consideration. So yes, that's very, very important who the vice president will be, because it's very possible that they will have to take over duties, maybe in the first term, but definitely in the second term. You're right.
That's right.
Mr. C.
Well, no, for me, and I like this, but I'm really think we've got to focus on these KPIs of these big players. I'm thinking about the fact that Disney wrote off $500 million on their investment in Vice and made no investments in African-American owned media. So this is that moment to have the conversation with Goldman Sachs. Who are your winners? Who are your losers? We need a 15%. If you bet on some dogs and lost it, we get 15%. That way.
Well, I think.
Go ahead.
No, I think you're right, Mr. Steed. At the very least, I mean, all these companies you mentioned, all of them at least have the temerity to have some sort of Black Lives Matter slogan at this point. They've all did some sort of affirmative effort to indicate that they value lives. This is a good time to kind of hold their feet to the fire and ask them to put their money where their mouth is. Because it takes much more than a social media post or a black tile on your Instagram to indicate that you value life. What does it look like, particularly when you're in the philanthropy community or the corporate community, in terms of supporting a Black business, supporting the uplift of communities, of the educational system, of all the different metrics that have impact on African Americans and our life expectancy? What are you doing to lessen our trauma and increase our opportunities to fulfill our potential? And if the answer is only a nonprofit donation, then I think they're not really taking it seriously or using the leadership or abilities that they have to meaningfully impact the issue. So I think you're exactly right. Money is part of it, but I think you'll know they're really invested when they not only throw money at the problem, but they really put their skin in the game, so to speak, in terms of sponsoring schools and sponsoring other institutions such that If those things fail, then it's an indication that they're really not interested in supporting us at all.
And I think the ask might not be big enough. I think the ask is, you've got 200 HBCUs, give or take a few. If each got 100 million, what does that take us up to? 20 billion? Something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a drop.
Yeah.
Make them drop the mic. Like do a social change, Mark Zuckerberg. Let's move up. I get weary, and that's why I ask you, what don't we get about making bigger asks so that we understand, Joe Biden? No, we want you to make sure. Don't have to be a quota, but we want a representative number that you will not ever tolerate again for the next 100 years. Less than 10% be going to people of color and Black people in particular. Because I don't want Delta, the post office, anybody that moves government workers to do business with the government if you're not going to do business and invest in our businesses.
Well, I think at the end of the day, you're hitting the point perfectly. I mean, we're conditioned to beg for crumbs when the entire loaf is ours. At the end of the day, I mean, the Democratic Party moves according to the strength of the turnout of African Americans. So therefore, that should require not only just an incredible amount of leverage over policy and approaches, but also investment. And African Americans haven't taken the opportunity to wield that hammer properly. And I think it's because the conditioning that we received. I mean, since the moment we've been brought to this country, 3/5 has been our expectation that we're not seen as whole, humanized in every generation ever since, down to whether or not it's reasonable to ask someone to take someone's knee off someone's neck, who's clamoring and begging for an opportunity just to breathe. I mean, we're still fighting that battle. So to get people to think past fighting that can we breathe and thinking to, oh, why don't we have 20% of the economy, I think is a tremendous stretch. But I think exactly what you're saying is what needs to be the conversation. That's the narrative. It's not asking for something. It's asking. It's demanding what's appropriate. And I think what's appropriate is to make sure that everyone who comes out of someone's womb, no matter the zip code, has a chance to get a quality education. That's not the case. If we had a per pupil allotment of dollars, that alone would do so much to eradicate inequality. If we also made sure that our police systems were just, and we've got a robust set of policy recommendations that are on our website, socialchange.site, relating to not just police accountability, but also housing, access to business ownership, job creation, voting. And I think at the end of the day, now's the time to hold people's feet to the fire as the unrest happens worldwide, but also as election peers around the corner.
Well, we're going to have to make sure we come together with your organization, because I want to make sure that we're training and in front of this KPI. And I just keep using, obviously, you know what KPIs is, because that's not in enough conversations for me. I'm not interested in your handouts. What you do for nonprofits, that's great, but that's not going to increase the amount of people, the collaboration, the difference in Apple. Are you doing something, Apple, that represents our level of consumption as receipt shareholders? Like, we have to get our percentage of our receipt. We're spending with you, Nike. We expect Nike scholars as much as we spend our Nike dollar. Like, don't tell us you respect us by helping Brother Kaepernick. Respect him, but he has enough money.
Right.
At the end of the day, what are you doing for HBCUs? Why can't we have Phil Knight scholarships, like 1,000 of them, at every school, every HBCU school, Phil? Like, just give us the stock. We'll just hold a stock. Give every HBCU, 100,000 shares. And I think our asks. So I want to work with you to come up with these asks, because the asks that I'm seeing are just bananas. They're like, what are y'all doing? Y'all sweeping up crumbs? It ain't a bread factory. That's what we need. We don't need no crumb factory. And I'm just smelling crumbs right now.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but it's a fact.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy to help however I can. I mean, at the end of the day, liberation is the work that we do. And that's, we focus on the disproportionate impact of oppression and oppressive systems on Black people. At the end of the day, I've traveled to rural Mississippi. I've traveled to rural parts of Louisiana. At the end of the day, your proximity to Blackness, not necessarily your skin tone, but also just in terms of you being treated as the other based on your class is something that it's remarkable. And I think the more we can do to actively engage it and make sure that people recognize you have to worry about those basic necessities. It makes you more for abuse and treatment. That's what's taking place right now. Abuse and mistreatment.
Yeah, I agree for sure. Well, let's figure it out, because I want to make sure that we don't lose any ground. I want to make sure that we can put much more measurement into this discussion before November. And I want to make sure that the corporations, we begin to assess those numbers on how we can increase housing. So we're not asking some of these banks that are sitting quiet, because there aren't a ton of banks. Bank of America said something, but the number one bank didn't. Mm-hmm. We number 5 didn't. And everybody's number's still small, which doesn't suggest investment. It kind of suggests Band-Aids. And we're already on the operating table, and we're struggling for an entire future of our race. And
I think it's important to acknowledge that there is a president in office who we could also hold accountable. President Trump may have a lot of disagreements with the Black community on a lot of issues, but at the end of the day, he's our president. We should make ask of him too and see what he will do. And I think that will also create more pressure on Joe Biden to step up if it's proposed to both people equally, and see who will do what it takes. And I think to ignore and abdicate his responsibility, and just not even give him an opportunity to say no, it does our community a disservice. So when I hear advocates saying, I will never talk to Trump, so anyone who refuses to ask the president of the United States the things our community needs is not a leader I want to work with. So I understand the frustration with his decision making, the administration generally, but it doesn't obviate our ability and our requirements and our duty to try to do the best we can to advocate for our community, no matter who's in office. And I think this is the best chance for people to show that they really mean that when they say it.
Well, I think the young man from ACLU said it best. Nobody's safe from an ask. Everybody must be asked. So you're right. Well, Todd, we appreciate you coming by. I would definitely do a one-on-one with you so that we can really set up some KPIs. I appreciate everything. I'd love for you to host something so that we could hear the discussion and learn more about your organization, and just how we could put some mechanisms in, particularly media mechanisms, to get your message out and educate our community for the insight that we can gain from an individual like yourself and your movement. Can you let people know how to follow you and get involved with you?
Absolutely. Thank you all for the opportunity to share a little bit of our thoughts here. All my thoughts relating to the politics was independent of our nonprofit, but I do happen to run a nonprofit as well called Social Change. You can catch us at CHI Social Change, CHI Social Change, or our website, socialchange.site, the site for social change, where you can see a lot of our policy platform ideas, a lot of our work to respond to immediate community needs, our storytelling work, our International Film Festival, but most importantly, our systemic reform work to make sure the laws reflect the needs of our communities.
Super. Thank you so much, Todd, for checking in.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you all. God bless and stay safe, okay?
Thank you. Peace.
Bye.
Terry, Shropshire, rolling out news report. Good evening.
Good evening. How you doing?
It is that moment in time where the creative class has come together to give us a vision, and we want to get started right away. What would you suggest that we do, team? We've got a whole host of individuals, but we've got a special treat for those of you who are watching. Hey, There she is.
Hi there.
She's back.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me back.
Come on. You know we need you. You've got us. You're a sister with superpowers. So we're all about the sisters with superpowers. You know, we're about sisters with superpowers at Rolling Out. That's for certain. But for those who don't know, this trauma that we're in and have been in for 400 years, and for all of you who don't know, this is a phenomenal actress. But today, we are going to talk as a creative class about the ideas and the characters that we sometimes want to call crazy, the characters that we want to vilify for losing their minds or being out of touch. But those aren't real characters. There's a real issue in our community, and we're just beginning to address it. Would you like to tell us a little bit more?
Well, again, my name is Karen Moore, and yes, I am an actress, but I am also an advocate for Silence the Shame, which is a nonprofit that focuses on mental health awareness and education in our communities through outreach programs and conversations. So we just want to bring awareness to mental health and show people that it's not a stigma, or it should not be stigmatized in the Black community.
Why don't you go ahead and talk to us about a little bit about, because I don't know if we gave you a proper introduction, Ms. Moore, in regards to the dynamic shows that you are starring in. And why don't we start there, and then I'll ask my question that I have.
Okay.
He wants you to do that again. He's really making contact tonight. This is Terry. She has superpowers. She stars. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Well, some people may know me as Victoria Franklin. I play the First Lady of the United States of America on Tyler Perry's The Oval on BET, and that can be seen on Wednesday nights tonight, 9/8 Central. And the character Victoria Franklin is quite volatile, if anyone has seen the show, but there is a reason behind that. And I also play in DC Universe's Stargirl, which is a new project that they've released. We're on our 4th episode, and it's really exciting. I'm so glad to be a part of both projects.
Yes, I have caught The Oval, and I walk away from it needing a sedative to calm down. Bring you down. Yeah, so I mean, this it gets intense in there, and the friction and the frenetic activity, boy, is just like, it causes sensory overload sometimes, so it can get intense.
Yeah, it's definitely intense.
Yeah, so why don't we start there first, about how you mentally and emotionally and spiritually kind of come down from the set. And then we'll talk about a little bit about mental health overall.
Okay, well, playing such a volatile character is diametrically opposite of my personality. So it is sometimes, initially, it was difficult for me to wrap my arms around the concept of the character. But when I learned to just take a step back from it and breathe, I stopped judging it, and I just allowed her to exist the way that she should exist. And like I said, she's very volatile, and there are a lot of things that happen in the show, just to say the least. A lot of things that happen in the show where, for instance, my character throws a bucket of water on her daughter while she's in the bed. She tases her daughter. She encourages her daughter to jump out of a moving car. Those types of abusive type things are not something that I would advocate.
Sure.
No, but
I've been waiting for this moment all my life, to push somebody out of a car.
Oh my God.
I really wanted to tase somebody. I got you. You're right, Terry.
But no, coming down off that, it really is a shedding I would have to do after every rap. Like I'd have to drive home in silence and just kind of shed that off, come home, in silence, take a shower in silence, just to get the day off me, and try to sow some positivity and some calmness into my being after a long day of Victoria Franklin.
And I wanted to talk about some of the things that from your experience or from the medical practitioners that you've been in contact with in regards to the best practices that seems to work in terms of dealing with overall mental health, and particularly in these volatile and precarious times where we're not only beset and besieged by a pandemic of a virus, an epidemic in police brutality, but also an uncertain future, which brings on another set of anxieties and angst. So, what are some of the things that you've heard that works best, or that you have practiced that works, that perhaps someone who's listening to the show can implement into their own lives and to help them through these times that it's just crazy these days?
Right, right. I think as a culture, we are so immersed in social media and media in general. And sometimes it is sensory overload. We need a chance to step away from it. And I think, a disconnection for a period of time from social media, to step away from the news for a moment, still stay informed, but you don't have to have it in your face all day long. It's just too much. So I think, with the anxieties that we're experiencing right now, it's good to step away for a moment. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not going anywhere, and you can still get the information that you need to stay informed. Another thing is to be kind to yourself. Take time to meditate, take time for self-care. That's really important, whatever that looks like for you, just to bring some balance into your life. This is a really interesting time that we're existing in, an unprecedented time, and most of us don't know how to deal with it. So also seeking help from a mental health professional. I would strongly advise anyone who's struggling right now to not be ashamed to do that. That's what they're there for. They get paid very well to help us through these difficult times. So those are a few things that I can recommend.
Well, that's what's up. Thank you for that. Thank you for that insight, because you're right. The other demographics in this country, the predominant culture has no problem seeking.
Right.
As a matter of fact, they got shows based on it. So
Right.
so yeah, it just it's peculiar to me that we still, I don't know, we are such a shamed culture, and then we hide in our shame.
Right. Right.
And
And no, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. No, I'm saying that we seem to thrive on shame, and that we hide everything that impacts us, that other people seem to at least try to address. May not successfully, but we don't even try to address it. Whether it's from our childhood, from HIV, whether it's from interfamily pedophilia, and just things that are just hidden in the closet that destroys and eats away. It has an acidic effect, eats away at the nucleus of the family and our culture. We don't want to seem to address. We just hide it. Even the church doesn't seem to want to address it. So I think that some of the things that you're suggesting is definitely going to be helpful in helping us to, shed the shame so that we can move forward. Because as you know, what's not addressed in your soul will come out sooner or later.
Absolutely.
And you're not going to like the way it comes out.
Exactly. I mean, I've even been honest with the people that I've been communicating with about the current state of affairs of our world. And I've got a lot of anger that I'm dealing with. And I've had to take a moment just to step back and deal with that and process, or try to process what's been going on, so as not to allow my anger to come out sideways on someone, because that can very easily happen, and we don't want that. So taking some time to yourself, and isolation is not a bad thing. Yeah, you just gotta and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, because I would rather isolate for a little bit and just get my mind together than to kirk out on somebody who just meant no harm by saying whatever they want to say or whatever. So that's where I am with it.
Absolutely. Mr. Steve?
Oh no, I was just admiring her honesty. I mean, I think the lack of vulnerability and the faces and the characters that many of us have to create in order to cope, we should be much more vulnerable, so that we don't have to become volatile. I'd like just to share, what organization, where individuals can find your organization so that they don't lose this moment and get caught up in the dialogue on how we're coping, but understand the service and commitment you have to service.
Right. Well, the organization that I advocate for is called Silence the Shame, and it's based in Atlanta. And it's a nonprofit that focuses on education and eliminating the stigma around mental health in our society. And we have outreach programs, and there are, conversations that we have and classes that are offered just to have a safe place, to offer a safe place for people who are in need of mental health services or resources. And I think it's really beneficial in this time in particular, because some of us don't know what to do, and it offers a path of guidance for some people.
Yeah, I had a friend, Shanti Doss. She was doing something similar to that. I don't know. Do you know Shanti Doss?
I know her name.
Yeah. So I think there's a whole, and also a friend of ours, he's on the Breakfast Club, Charlemagne the Guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that all of you are giving us a voice of hope. I mean, I think that's what's happening.
I think that's what it's all about. I mean, we have these platforms, and they shouldn't just be used for entertainment. We should be helping people along. People actually listen, to someone. I don't know why, but they actually listen to someone who is more in the spotlight. And so we have a responsibility to reach back and help as many people as possible.
I see. We have a Facebook fan. Her name is Jamaica Lynch. She said that you were supposed to belt out some notes this morning, and she's waiting to hear you sing.
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Lord have mercy! Oh my gosh! It's been a minute since I sung anything outside of the shower. Yeah.
Well, that sounded pretty good. I mean, that's the best "Oh my God" I've ever heard. So, usually when somebody say "Oh my God," that's not a good thing, but that was the most beautiful. Oh my God! Can you do that one more again? One more again.
Oh my God, Lord have mercy on my soul.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, we'll go back to Facebook and see if Jamaica Lynch approves of that. That was beautiful. Yeah, she said that was amazing. So, are you going to do something with that particular skill set in addition to it? I mean, I know that your first allegiance is to downtown Atlanta and that massive, beautiful campus with that White House, an actual White House. What did you think? First of all, what did you think when you saw an actual White House in Atlanta?
I know, right? I was fortunate enough to be on campus and watch it as it was being built. And He allowed us to, come in at different stages of construction because he wanted us to feel like we were really part of it. And we have been woven into the history of that. And it's a White House, for those who don't know. He did build an actual White House on his campus, which is almost to scale. And it's a pretty good replica. If you haven't visited the campus, when everything gets back to normal, hopefully, whatever our new normal is, please, anybody who wants to come and visit, come visit, because it is something to behold. And I get to play in it. So, I mean, that's my house when I go to work. And it's just amazing what he's done.
So I want to tell everybody who the he is. I think if they
that's right. We didn't mention.
We didn't mention who the he was. I mean that.
We didn't, and it's none other than the incomparable Tyler Perry. Yes, and he has his White House on 300 acres of former Confederate land, and it's owned by one Black man now. And so that in and of itself is, it's you know, yeah, it speaks a lot to it speaks a lot to him and some of the advancements that we've made. But you know, he makes an effort to, like I said, weave people into the culture. Once you're, you know, once you're in a part of Tyler Perry Studios, you're a part of the family. And it's just amazing what he's been able to do. And he employs so many people in the community, and he's just highly respected. And he is a visionary. I love working with him.
I see. So what I was asking is that in addition to, excuse me, in addition to what you're doing on the set and on that beautiful, majestic campus, what are you going to do with that other skill set you have? Are you going to do anything with that? Romeo International wants to know.
Romeo International. Hi, Romeo International. You know, musical theater is my first love. And so I came up through the ranks in musical theater. At one point, I pursued a career in music. I had an R&B band, and I did a cover band and things like that. And it's a lot of fun, but I think that if I were to do anything with it going forward, it would be musical theater.
I see.
Or maybe I can be a doo-wop pop girl for, you know, some R&B artist or something.
Well, I hope to see that. I hope that you are able to do both in a very high profile capacity, because watching Wednesday evenings, watching the Oval is a lot of fun. Like I said, it's like there's a lot of misdirection. You know what I'm saying? It's like a triangular crossfire of emotions. It's a roller coaster of emotions. So that's a lot of fun. But then again, the singing is fun. So I hope that you're able to do both and continue to do both in a very high profile capacity. So both people, everybody can go ahead and digest your entire skill set. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Or they can just write that into the script. That all of a sudden, you know, just write it into the script, and that way you get a runway onto your next spot. I think that's a super talent, but it also helps people heal. To know that everybody should keep a song in their heart and know that there is someone who really sings to and for them. So I'm definitely with Terry and the great Oh My God, but I think the versatility that you exhibit as it relates to just being a very strong creative and a beacon of hope for our community is much needed. So your service is to be applauded, which I think for me means a lot, because mental health affects everyone. There's not anyone. If you're not the person that it's your brother or your cousin or someone you love. So us being able to find roads and pathways and a mental health self-care practice in the lives of everybody in our community is so needed. So thank you so much for your continued love and respect, but also for making us proud in being a sister with superpowers. And we look forward to all the beautiful things that are going to happen for you in the future, and all the things and various characters until you get that Oscar, and remember to come back to rolling out news report. Terry?
Yes, and thank you very much for spending time with us and getting us a glimpse of your skill set, and also giving us something to look forward to, because the fact is that you guys are going to get back on campus. In July or August?
We report at the end of July. That's what's planned, and then we start filming at the beginning of August.
Yes, and before we let you go, very quickly, there's a set of there's a protocol that you're going to have to follow, because first of all, once you guys go on campus to shoot for like 3 or 4 weeks, y'all can't leave, right? Because of the coronavirus. So tell us, but Tyler Perry he has a bar, a restaurant, and all kind of stuff on the campus, as well as a medical facility. This is off the chain. I mean, I can't wait until he opens it back up for tours. But tell us about what that process, or what you learned that process is going to be like once you report.
Well, from what I understand, we'll be tested once we arrive to campus, and we will be quarantined. We'll be tested, quarantined, and then tested again, and then we can, begin the activities of work. But yes, we will have to remain on campus, the cast and crew, for the entire duration of filming. And it should be really interesting, but it's Tyler Perry, he's a lot of fun. So we'll work really, really hard. And I know that it will be a challenge adhering to the new protocols, whatever they may be, because we're just not accustomed to operating in that fashion. But we can do it. I'm positive that we can do it. But then, you know, we have weekends, and yeah, we got bars and food, and I'm sure there'll be a long barbecue or something like that. We're going to make the most of it, and prayerfully, we will make history in doing so.
Well, thank you very much. I'm sorry for that last question, but I had to get that in because that's fascinating. But thank you very much for visiting with us today, and blessings to you and the rest of your crew on a dynamic season upcoming.
Thank you so much. Stay safe, stay blessed.
Thank you so much. Peace. Rolling out news report. That was Miss Moore. She is a phenomenal example of success here. Terry?
Yes. I'm sorry.
How are you, man?
I mean, I'm good. You know, just yeah, I'm good. Just adjusting to the situation as it unfolds, and it's fluid, and it continues to change. It continues to change shapes and forms and complexion. I mean, it's just like it's like a salamander. Every day is something different. It's just everything we're looking at something different. It's amazing. So yeah, but you know, but I'm blessed, favored, and thankful for what I have, and that we're able to, you know, we have what we need to get through this, and we will get through it. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, and how. You know, I think the biggest thing is all those things that you were saying on top of that last one. How, you know, it's I think we need to stop worrying about the end and stay in the now. You know, I think that is key.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Looks like we have a couple of more dynamic guests that's about ready to come on.
Woo! Rolling out news hour. What's happening? What's happening, Law? How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Oh, come on. Rolling out news hour. We're excited here. We're all proud of all the young and seasoned vets that come hang out with us and share the genius of my community. The change agents that stop by here at Rolling Out News Hour. So how can we be bad, man? We're all good, and we're safe, and we're not first attenders. We're not on the front line. So, you know, praise God, because, you know, we want to get them protected. But I know that I'm privileged to be able to do what we do and share the vision of other visionaries like yourself.
Thank you for having us.
Why don't you tell us about your project and introduce yourself to the audience? For those who don't know, I don't want to leave anything out. And you've got a special prize for us, so we don't want to miss that either.
Oh, yes. So, you know, my name is Laurence, Laurel, Watford. I am the director of the project, the short film Flip. We're actually a team of 3, and the other 2, I think, are trying to figure out how to get connected right now, if they're not in yet. But Flip was a short film that was created by my Tyler Street Films partner, Jack Manning III, and was co-written by another friend of ours, Tiffany L. Burgess. We're all Hamptonians, all graduates from Hampton University. And Jack had this idea about, you know, just this vision to create a film that would really uniquely address the subject of racism from the micro to the macro aggressions, and to be able to have it really impact people in a way that, you know, in some ways may seem familiar, but just hasn't quite had the same effect. And so he put the team together, and the film, you know, has been able to just do some amazing things. And there he is. Thank you.
You okay, Law?
Good. It's kind of hard to keep the show when you're not around, you know?
You got it, man. You did fantastic. How you guys
Oh,
doing?
no, he was with family, bruh. So we weren't gonna let him go far off the track. He understands what he's been involved with. I mean, you know, HU in the house, so that's good.
And
so y'all all went to Hampton.
Yes, we did.
That is a great institution. We got Tiffany here with us. Hello, Tiffany.
Hi. Good evening.
There she is.
All right. Well, I love the idea of Flipped. When we heard about it, I said we've got to let these creative geniuses share with our audience, because we want to make sure that the community knows that there are those that have visions that we've all seen in our heads, that we've all wanted to take place. And now you've allowed it to manifest on film. So why don't you describe the project and let's get to it.
Well, let's see. We take a high school teenager and we let him experience some of the racial microaggressions that we go through in our daily lives. And we see how that pushes him to a point where he wants to basically push back. But unfortunately, he's met with some circumstances that he won't be able to control. And the premise is that this is a reversed world. Everything in this universe is reversed. African Americans are the majority and white Americans are the minority. And what we see is what that social injustice and racial sensitivity looks like from a different lens.
But Tiffany, you haven't said anything, so why don't you say something?
Okay. I was trying to get my lighting right in my office. But it's pretty much as Jack stated. We all went to Hampton University together. He had this idea. He came to me and asked me about writing it. And it's really, we figured sometimes you have to take a walk in someone else's shoes to really understand, you know, their lives and their plight. And this short film is our attempt to do that. You know, really put folks in our shoes as African Americans and see some of the things that we deal with, the microaggressions, the police brutality, and all of that.
Not all of that, all of it. You know, it ain't a part that they ever leave out. It ain't a moment that they ever keep their knee off our neck. It ain't a moment that you're not reminded, you know.
Right.
Like, man, when is there gonna be, man?
Yeah.
You gotta keep looking at you. It's time to retire you, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it is definitely a your sensitivity level is up even more elevated during these kinds of moments where we see protesters coming out and people uprising and saying, you know, we have to push back against this system. But we actually wrote this film and did this film in 2017. We actually started writing it in 2016. So as you can see, nothing has changed. And the fact that it's still very relevant to what's going on was the main reason we decided to release it online last week. We had a lot of people see it in a few different cities over the course of the last year and a half to 2 years. And we were being asked, when are you going to show the film? Because the country needs to see this. A lot of people don't understand what empathy is. And to see themselves in someone else's shoes for a moment might get uncomfortable, but it might also be a teaching moment. So that's really, you know, what we wanted to start was a conversation about what it's going to feel like if, you know, white people weren't in the majority in the United States and they didn't colonize and spread throughout the world. And what if African Americans had done that, Africans had done that, and then created this colony called the United States? What would it look like today? So that's where the conversation is.
Well, it's a bit fortuitous that you did this in proximity to the explosion of this pandemic of a virus and the epidemic of police brutality in America. So I wanted to find out from each of you, and I'm sorry that we lost one of your comrades. But
busted in. Sorry.
No. It is absolutely cool. You know, because we all at home right now because of a pandemic, and so you know, sometimes somebody's gonna knock at the door. Like earlier, I had to stop because somebody knocked at my door. So these things are going to happen. But what I wanted to find out was what was one of the things that you learned that you did not know or did not realize after making this movie. I never forgot how, I think it was Jodie Foster, the Academy Award-winning actress. She said after every movie she makes, it changes her perspective some way about life. So I wanted to know, what did you guys learn from making this movie, such a radical movie, a radical concept? What did you learn about yourselves or about life or something that you didn't realize?
I think there's a few things. Tiff, do you want to? We lost Laurence, huh?
Gosh, I mean, I feel like we know what we go through, right? We deal with it every day, and it becomes something that's taken, second nature. But when you watch it, like even just writing it out, and I could feel myself getting emotional just writing about some of the microaggressions. There's a piece in the film where the young white woman experiences something that a lot of African-American women have experienced in the past regarding our hair. So I don't want to just give it away, but when you see the short film, you know what I'm talking about. And so it's like, you deal with it every day, but there's something about watching it play out that kind of, for me, was emotional and also, can evoke some anger a little bit. Yeah. I think I learned that for some of the things we deal with, I had just become used to it and used to having to deal with it. And I learned that during the writing process and then watching this film come to fruition and watching it, I learned that, I really am affected by a lot of these things that I thought I had just learned to deal with, if that makes sense.
I see. Mr. Manning?
I would echo everything that Tiffany said. I think for me, one of the things that I learned is that some people don't want the message. They're very comfortable in their space. I literally 24 hours ago, we were trying to advertise the project, and we were told by someone Black it was too aggressive. And
you're advertising where now?
We were trying to advertise on Instagram through someone, and their sponsor basically said it's too aggressive. And in my mind, I said, well, that's the point. It's too aggressive when you watch a white child be stalked and attacked and killed. But Black folks, we've been watching ourselves on television be assaulted and murdered for years now. And the whole point is that you get upset and is that you feel affected. And some people they push back from that growth experience, if you will, of watching it in reverse. We actually on set, we had our gun handler. He basically supervised the discharge of a weapon on campus on the set, and we looked at him and we kind of made a prejudgment. Okay, we're all born with biases. There's an older white gentleman. He was a retired police officer, and we thought, oh man, he's really gonna react to this in a way that we're not really gonna be comfortable with. So he's watching, he's giving our guys tips on how to handle the gun and how a police officer would take control of the situation. He's being aggressive in his speech and his tone. And mind you, he's advising Black officers, Black characters. And then when he sees the result of what happens, and then he sees what happens next, something inside of him was affected. And he got the message instantly. And I think he said it to Tiffany. Tiff, I can't remember what he said to you, but you can speak to that.
If I remember correctly, and this was 3 years ago, but he was just saying he was really affected. He was like, Miss Tiffany, that was really powerful. Like I was, that really did something to me. And the part that really, I feel like he was, like Jack said, we had also, kind of prejudged him with just some of the things he was saying and some of our interactions. Really nice guy at the end of the day, but he didn't have a lot of reaction throughout the filming process until that end. when he sees what happens to this young teenage white boy, you know. And then when he saw us, you know, flip it back and do what we did at the end, then he really reacted. And so he was just like, it was difficult to watch. It was powerful. And yeah, that was his takeaway, which is what we want.
Yeah, but that exactly. Exactly. That was
should have called me about that bread spending. I don't know whose social you needed, but I can help you with that. In terms of figuring out how to get some powerful stuff. So we can talk offline on that. I think we want people to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
There was a young man in MSP up in Minnesota, and he said, nobody's safe. So if you think you're safe, you're not safe.
Right. So
if you sit on the sidelines, after we find out you sitting on the sidelines, we coming for you too. Yeah. Like if you didn't advocate, it was actually Mr. Darius. He's of ACLU. He's like, nobody's safe. Another friend of mine has something to say, and they say, you know, you don't have to be in the streets, but you do have to be in the struggle. So we don't care if you show up and, you know, it's too much for you. You just got to eat it all, because we're going to bring it all to you. We're going to bring it home. It's coming home. It's coming home to roost. We're going to figure out the tools to assess you, and if you are an assistant to the oppressor. Because we got to live in these truths. We got to remove this. And I think that we want people to be creatives. We're not trying to make people be uncomfortable.
Never.
If that's where you are, you definitely didn't want to go to a black college, because you're gonna get Jones. Like we're gonna make sure you can manage this.
Exactly.
You're gonna be able to manage this, because you're in a safe zone. You just don't know it. When you get out of here, you're gonna have to manage this.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I'm really proud of what you've done, because it takes people out of a safe zone. It says things probably that every black person has thought 1,000,000 times. Like if we, I don't know if you remember, Edward Jones wrote Known World. I don't know if you ever saw that. Got a prize, but it was like blacks owning slaves at that point. The whole world, and how we wouldn't be any different if we were actually the oppressor. So it kind of asked the question. Obviously, he could have flipped it all the way. You get that? Flipped it all the way?
Yeah.
He could have really flipped it. So I think we got to ask more people and ask even white people, have you flipped yet? You know, I really want you to flip, see? You know, I think that's a play on. But why don't we share this movie with us? If they would play it, I would love to see, and for our individuals to be able to watch this film and talk about it.
Thank you. Yeah.
We are confronted primarily with a moral issue. The heart of the question is whether all Americans are to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities. If an American, because his skin is white, cannot eat lunch in a restaurant open to the public, if he cannot send his children to the best public school available, if he cannot vote for the public officials who represent him, if in short he cannot enjoy the full and free life which all of us want, then who among us would be content to have the color of his skin changed and stand in his place?
Class, let's settle down, please. Excuse me, please. Listen, let's remember to be respectful of one another, okay? Because we know the rules in my classroom, right? Thank you. Yes.
I don't think one race should get a whole month to only talk about their history. In my opinion, that's racist.
You guys, if you...
How is that racist? I mean, they were once slaves in this country.
Right.
It's just 1 month. And it's the shortest one too, right?
We've been learning about the exact same stuff every year, Em. I mean, like JFK, the March on Washington, MLK. I mean, when are we gonna move on?
Move on?
Come on, man, how? With everything going on nowadays? You watch the news, right? Move
Okay,
on.
but do you
Come on,
know,
man.
you guys,
Chris is
wait,
Come on,
wait a
man. I
second.
mean,
You can't just keep ignoring what's been going on in this country, you guys.
We can't keep blaming each other for what our ancestors did. We didn't do it. I mean, when I look at you, I don't even see color. Y'all aren't even like most white people to me.
Not like most white people? What the hell is that supposed to mean, Nikki?
Okay, you guys, now that's enough, okay? You guys, seriously, you know I don't play that in my classroom. No disrespect here, okay? Listen, I know that racism and slavery are both very sensitive subjects. Yes. But it is our shared history in this country, okay? Thank you. Now, we are going to have a quiz on what we learned today and what we went over. Here are the pages. I know you wrote them down, so make sure you guys are prepared, okay? I don't want any excuses.
See you later.
Bye. Good job. Hey, Chris, you okay? You know Nikki didn't mean anything by that, right?
Yeah, I know, Mrs. J. I'm just a little frustrated, that's all.
Yeah, no, I can understand your frustration. But you know you can talk to me about whatever, right? Anything.
Yes, ma'am, I know.
Okay, good.
I just get one more day.
I can't give you an extension. Sorry.
Can you believe them? We're not like most white people. I was so frustrated.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I know, Em, I know. Look, I gotta go right now, okay? But I'll text you later on tonight. Maybe we can hang out.
Yeah.
Okay. See you later. Sure you're okay?
Yeah. I'm okay.
See you later.
Hey, Nala.
Hey.
How's it going?
It's going good.
Yeah? You look overwhelmed. Is everything okay?
Yeah, my U.S. history class didn't go as planned, that's all.
Girl, they rarely do. Trust me. So what happened?
So I showed a film on slavery in my U.S. history class, and the discussion afterwards just got really out of hand. And Chris Imani, you know Chris.
Of course.
Really good kid, right?
Yes.
Never does anything out of line. But him and Emily Oglethorpe, they got upset, and I'm trying to find a way to get my students to be able to talk about those subjects without offending each other. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, if you ask me, I think that you need to stop teaching these kids about slavery and that kind of stuff anyway. It should be taken out of the curriculum, and I personally don't think that any race needs a History Month, but that's just me.
Tell me you're joking.
Think about it. It's setting us back and dividing us even more. We should be moving forward. We should be teaching way more important things.
What's more important? Like, more important things like what?
It's important.
Wait, no, so are you saying that teaching the history of slavery in a U.S. history class is not important at all?
It's important, Nala, but why don't you just have the kids do a report or a group project or something and just move on with it? I mean, you're spending too much time on it.
What's too
That's
much
all I'm
time?
saying.
What is too much? Do you know do you watch the news? Do you know what's going on right now? Do you know?
Of course I watch the news. All lives matter to me.
All lives matter. Yeah, I really wish that were the case, Anthony, because people are dying every single day.
I know that
because of the
they're
color of their skin. No, you can't sit there and say all lives matter because
Yes.
that's not true. That's why racism and slavery have to be taught in school.
These kids don't care about that.
We're the ones that's supposed to be preparing them. Like,
We've been
that's
preparing
our
them.
job.
I've been here for a long time and we've been preparing them for it. It's just not working.
If the kids fail, it's because we failed them. That's all I'm saying.
Listen, Nala, I've been there. I've tried to save the world. These kids aren't interested.
Yeah,
honey. You gotta look at the
really
environment.
not.
Where
okay.
Nala, don't leave. Just.
Hey, Emily. What's up?
Nothing much.
Class was crazy today, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
And you know Nikki didn't mean what she said earlier, right?
I mean, I guess so.
So, you good, right?
Yeah, I'm fine here.
Okay, great. I like her hair. Okay.
Okay. See you next period. Bye.
Hey. Hey.
Hey, Mom.
How was school?
We watched the slavery film in my U.S. history class, and you wouldn't believe the crap some of the kids in my class were saying.
Watch your mouth, number one, and like what?
What, I only said crap. Anyway, they were saying that it's not fair for one race to have a history month, and we shouldn't waste time talking about slavery and racism and stuff. And then one of my friends said that me and him aren't like most white people. Like, what does that even mean?
Chris, let's talk. Come here. You just gotta focus on school and baseball. You can't change or control people, but you can control how you deal with those people. So stop reacting.
Yeah, I know.
Okay?
I know, Mom. I'm just...
Yeah, I know. But you're going somewhere, Chris. You are, and don't let anybody tell you differently. And your father called today, so he just wanted to see if you could call him back later this afternoon, okay?
I'm not calling him. For what?
Christopher.
No, Mom. I don't have anything to say to him.
Christopher, don't start.
He doesn't give a damn about us.
Christopher.
And you not having a job right now.
Don't worry about me. Don't worry.
Left us.
Christopher, Jacob, and Monty. Look at me. He didn't leave you, honey. We got a divorce.
All right, I'm sorry.
Just call your father.
I will.
Okay.
But later. I told Ty and Alex I would be at the batting cage.
No, you just got home,
I
Christopher.
will call him, I promise, okay? I won't be out late.
Get your key.
Yep.
Be safe, okay?
I will.
Love you.
Love you too.
Thanks so much for coming. You have a great day. Thank you.
Don't. No. Bro, watch out for me. Is he looking?
May I help you?
No, I'm fine. Thanks, man.
Tell me that you're there.
Sir, are you sure there's nothing I can help you with?
Dude, I said I'm fine.
Hey, listen, I don't want any trouble.
What's your problem?
Hey, I don't want any trouble.
Trouble? I'm just trying to get a soda and some candy. You're fucking following me.
Chill, man.
Hey, there's no problem, sir. Is he with you?
Yeah, he's good, man.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Now it's okay?
Chill out.
Now it's okay. Yeah, fuck this, dude. Like I'm in here fucking pissing and shitting in your store.
Come on, man. He's cool.
Thank you. Please, just leave.
It's okay,
Come
man.
on, man. Fuck your store.
We got
Hey,
this.
wouldn't want somebody
You
swipe
just leave.
wrist. Fucking funny, man.
Damn.
Just leave.
Yo.
Hey, babe.
Hey, babe. What's up?
I'm still at school grading these papers. I'm getting ready for this quiz tomorrow. What you doing?
Not much. It's probably gonna be an early night. A and I out here patrolling, but ain't not much going on. So.
Oh, yeah, well, nothing going on is definitely a good thing.
How about you? How was your day today?
It was kind of rough. I'm teaching a section on slavery in my U.S. history class. Some of the kids got upset. And then, well, get this though, I'm sitting here in the teacher's lounge. I'm talking to Ange about the situation, and then Anthony's nosy ass comes up and he starts going on and on about how we just shouldn't be teaching slavery and stuff like that anymore. I'm like, boy, bye. Like, can you believe him?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I gotta agree with him. You know what I mean? Why are y'all still teaching the racism and slavery stuff in the schools? I'm saying we out here in these streets and you know, these white kids, believe me, they ain't worried about their history.
They out here causing trouble.
Tell him to get out of our conversation,
right.
please. Because you know that there's good and bad, black, white, Indian, whatever kids, because there's good and bad people, period.
You can't sit there and stereotype all white kids.
Okay, no, you're right, you're right.
How I feel about Amari, his bullshit. Like, he's always doing that.
Babe, just calm down.
Like, no, I'm sorry, it's just, okay, take my student, Chris Imani, for example.
The kid I'm always telling you about, he's such a smart and talented kid, Kurt.
And he has so much going on for himself. Like, I really want you to meet him.
Yeah, I know, Nala, I hear you, babe. I hear you. Look, I'm sorry, all right? I just don't want you getting all stressed out all the time.
I'm sorry, too. I mean, I didn't mean to snap on you.
But you're right. You're right. You know, there are some good ones out here. But look, I gotta go, all right? I can call you on the way home.
Yeah.
We good?
Yeah, we're good. Babe, be careful.
Yeah.
I love you.
All right, I love you too.
Bye.
All right, bye.
She crazy, man.
Oh, man, come on.
Hey, Emily. You busy right now? Just walking down the road. I'm like 5 minutes away at the batting cages. I'm like 5 minutes from your place. Okay. See ya. Bye.
Yeah, on the real though.
On the real.
You need to control your wife.
Really? So you gonna model this situation for me?
It sounds like she wear the pants in the relationship.
Get out of here. Look, how many relationships you been in, man? That's because, you know, you in these relationships, I hear from you. What?
Look at this one, Kari.
Oh, man, come on. You just heard me talking about this shit with my wife. I mean, the kid ain't bothering nobody. Just leave him alone.
Kari.
What?
When's your wife gonna learn?
1 King 41, 1 King 1, 24 is 134th place southeast. 25-year-old white male, 6 foot, green greenie, white t-shirt, no weapons.
He ain't bothering no one, huh?
41, we have it.
I hate to say I told you so.
I got this one, right?
Another unit clear, please.
You just check him out. Excuse me, kid. Kid.
Hey, you hear us talking to you?
Hey. Let me see some ID, please.
For what? I didn't do anything.
Okay.
What's in the bag?
Just came from the batting cages.
Let's see some ID now.
But I didn't do anything. This is what y'all do, right? Always harassing us?
Hey.
I'm gonna ask you one last time. Show us some ID now.
Hey, just calm down, all right? Calm down, kid. All right? And just take out your ID, put your hands behind your head, and get down on the ground.
Chris, what's going on?
Hey, miss, step back. Step back.
Hey, I'm not okay. Call my mom for me, please.
Shut your mouth and get down on the ground.
Miss Imani, we're by the pool, by the
It's
park.
not safe, then.
Chris is being arrested. Just please just come down here, please.
Shut up and get down on the ground.
Fucking yelling, man.
Hey.
Get down on the ground.
Just calm down. You need to calm down
Back
and
up.
listen, all right? Now get on the ground slowly.
Why would I get on the ground? I'm not armed.
Do you have any ID?
Yes, I have ID, okay?
All right.
Just
Hey, what out?
Get on the ground.
Hey,
Hold on.
wait. What's up?
Hey, it's gonna be okay, Em.
Stop resisting. Stop resisting.
Leave him
You need to
alone.
stand still, son.
Get back.
Right
Before
now.
I arrest you too.
Hey, what are you gonna arrest her for? What did she do?
Shut up and get down on the ground. Stop resisting. Stop resisting. Hey, stop resisting.
Okay,
Shots fired. Shot fired. Hey, kid. Hey, hang in there.
Hey, stay right there.
I thought he had a gun. I thought he had a gun. If he would have just complied.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Law. Well, welcome back, Mr. Law.
Yeah, 3 kids and Wi-Fi,
Oh yeah, I know. Trust me, I know. But yeah, that was very powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was powerful, and it was jolting. And I wanted to bring up the fact that I'm glad you guys recognized early on in life, your adulthood, that jolting is usually the way in which you're able to get a point across, because people don't usually respond to kind, people imploring kindly for you to do something. You know what I'm saying? And so jolting the sensibilities is how you get a message across, and that got it across. That got it across.
Yeah.
So that was good. I enjoyed that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I mean, and just to speak to that point of jolting, we had some situations where certain people, a few have kind of been a little reticent to even kind of engage the film because they felt that it was jolting. But, when we look at kind of how change happens, there's 2 ways that it happens. It can be jolting on film, or it can be jolting in real life. And when it's jolting in real life, that looks like a cop with his knee on the neck of a human being for 8 minutes. So, it's really great that Jack was able to kind of create this kind of vision, and Tiffany was able to sculpt it out in such a way, that hope.
Oh, he froze on us.
Yeah.
That was 3 kids and internet, he said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So that's gonna happen from time to time, but hopefully we'll get them back pretty soon.
Yeah.
But it brought me back to the when I was looking at the interaction in the classroom, and it just reminds me of the few times, and I know you guys been in this, where white people are the minorities in a particular situation. Like they might go to a concert where there's a rapper that they really love, and they're exceedingly and just almost irritatingly nice because they're the minorities in a situation, and you can tell that they don't feel very comfortable in that situation.
Yeah.
And so it would be, so in that situation, they understand what it's like to be a minority.
Yeah.
To be uncomfortable because they're so nice. This is like, will you just calm down?
Yeah.
You don't have to, what I'm saying? Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to say, oh, I'm sorry? No, it's cool. Because when you're in a situation and we're the minorities, they don't care. They act like either you don't exist, or they stare you down in that restaurant in that particular suburb. So that's what it reminded me of, is having the shoe on the other foot. But instead of just in a few minutes, trying to take that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and how that wears down on the psyche and the heart. And there's no wonder why a certain population dies on average before another demographic.
Right.
So,
Right.
So that movie was just moving to me, in the fact that just seeing it on the other foot was just jarring.
Thank you. Yeah, we know that growth doesn't happen unless there's stress, right? So we're watching a stress point. So hopefully in the country, we're watching growth as it's happening. We're hoping that people are learning the lessons of what's going on. And do I expect, us to leap forward, light years, no, but I do expect some incremental growth to start happening. So, with art reflecting what's going on in our society, we're stressing the growth. It's just like with anything. Without struggle, there's no progress, right? So that's what we've got to do. We've got to create that tension point through our art and basically jolt people into realizing that the status quo is not acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was just interesting. I mean, it's also a historical perspective, and you can go back and check the records for your own self. But I noticed that in the late 1950s, there were not very many concessions given to Dr. King and the civil rights movement.
Right.
But all of a sudden, when the Nation of Islam rose, and there was this guy named Malcolm X, and he started talking about not turning the other cheek, and he started talking about an eye for an eye.
Yeah.
And he started jolting people's senses awake. All of a sudden, there were a little bit more. They were still hard fought, but all of a sudden there were more concessions given to the Dr. King side than it was previously, because they felt that they could ignore him, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So this movie has a lot of implications in it, and it just, for me, being a like a quasi historian. This just takes me back to some of the other times in American history where this applies.
Yeah.
And so hopefully a lot of people will be able to see this and just take it in what you're trying to get across. Well, let me ask you, what are your reasonable expectations in terms of the message and hopefully how people digest this film?
Tiff, I'll let you take this one.
I mean, I can't ask you anything, Tiffany. He was going to give Jack all.
I was about to jump in there, but I was like,
I was waiting. I just didn't know. I wasn't going to say anything.
Gosh, I mean, compassion, understanding. We want to evoke emotion. We want it to be difficult to watch. And we want people to get invested into the character of Christopher Imani and Emily and just all the characters, the well-meaning teacher, and there's a part in there at the end where Kyrie, the husband, realizes this is the student she's been telling me about when he looks at the identification, the student ID, and he realizes, this is my wife's student, who she loves so much and who she's always talking about, who she wants me to meet. And so it's like, we want folks to really, feel like we do when we watch these senseless murders, the microaggressions, like I said earlier, the part where the young Black woman is in the restroom with her and she's like, I like your hair. Can I? And she grabs and reaches to touch it. And it's like, don't touch my hair, don't, invade my personal space, and so we want people to feel it, feel what it's like, take it in, and then see how you would feel around this point. I mean, this was written in 2016, it was shot in 2017, as Jack said. It's 2020, and here we are still just upset and emotional and trying to get people to understand, what it's like to have Breonna Taylor and, George Floyd and all of these just senseless killings in the last, few months. So those are some of the, I would say I wouldn't even say expectations. I would say hopes, that people walk away with when they see this short film.
Yeah. To add on to that, I guess one of the other hopes is that not just that people are able to put themselves in someone else's shoes, but realize that even if they're the person standing by watching something happen, that they learn how to speak up. You got bystanders that are on the street. When you look at some of those officers that were aiding in the murder of George Floyd, they didn't step in at any point. They sat there and they just watched, and they were basically complicit in all of this. So,
they were more than just complicit. They actually partook.
They protected. Yeah, so they didn't even, as he was laying there for that 8 minutes, it didn't do anything to stop it,
No.
you know? And so that's just as bad. And that applies in all cases of when you see racism happening, you know, when you're watching in the store scene where, you know, their friend is being harassed because of the color of his skin, and they come over and instead of calling him out, they tell Chris, let's just leave, you know, rather than saying, hey man, like you need to, you know, he's not doing anything wrong, and the whole time they're the ones doing something wrong. You know, so in any instance, we can't be afraid to call it out, and we have to say, you know, what it is. You know, we are involved, like you were saying earlier, whether you're directly involved or you're on the sideline, you're involved. And so you can't sit there and just be a spectator in everything that's going on. You have to speak up and make your voice heard.
Right.
Well, I hope that you know, people of a different hue get to observe it. And so,
Well, they have. We've gotten some great responses, actually.
Okay.
We were in New York about a year and a couple of months ago. And we showed it to a pretty diverse crowd. We had a lot of professors come from different colleges and a lot of white professors, and they were emotional. They were receptive to the message. A lot of them completely understood where we were coming from. Some wanted to know how they could bring this into the classroom, which is another goal, ultimately, is to use it as a teaching tool, besides trying to turn it into a series, which, you know, we'll get into that later. But that white group of folks that were watching, they really understood it. But I mean, there were tears in the audience. And anytime, like when we were in Orlando, we showed it at Orlando Film Festival, and we had a majority white crowd. And we had people coming up to us afterwards telling us how it hit them and how it affected them. And they all said that pretty much consistently the same thing. The world needs to see this. People need to see this. So, you know, I think the message is getting across within other hues, as you put it. And Law's back and he changed locations.
My daughter kicked the router.
I mean, but that's the new normal in these times. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Back in the day, see, I'm old enough to remember when you had to get up to change the channel, actually get to change the channel on the TV. So you know what I'm saying? So I'm from that generation.
Yeah.
So this is just a new reality of the fact that everything is tied to technology, and just one false misstep can change your whole game.
Exactly.
So, Mr. Law, welcome back again. You know what I'm saying? I salute you. You got 3 kids in one house.
Yeah. The crazy thing is I've been online homeschooling all day online, and now I try to do my own thing, and it's like, you know.
Yeah.
Law, maybe you can add into what we were just talking about. We were talking about how it affected, well, I guess some of the hopes that you had while we were making the project.
Well, just the reasonable expectations from your audience are different, you know, just different demographics, particularly the predominant culture, to view this and to try, you know what I'm saying? What is just, even for us or anybody who sees it, what is like in your mind or in your soul, like your reasonable expectation of people to get from it, to derive from it, to what do you want them to see?
I mean, I think, you know, kind of what Jack and Tiffany said kind of hit home. It's the empathy. And one of the things that we've been, you know, starting to do actually is reaching out to these organizations that are involved in racial reconciliation, racial justice. And a lot of these organizations are actually white organizations, for them to see the film. And their response has been like, literally today, from a group in Montana, they were like, we had to watch it twice. The first time we were like, oh, that's messed up. And then we had to watch it again to really get the impact. And that's what we want. Because again, it's, you know, even as we're seeing with the Amy Coopers of the world, like there are like a lot of white liberal people who think that they understand it when it's from afar, but they still don't have that sense of empathy that's kind of necessary to take it to the next step, to take it to the next level. So the idea is hopefully to pull people who may be on the ultra, you know, racist tip to maybe kind of think, well, you know, something, and then as well as people who are liberal and think that they get it, but really don't get it, to maybe, you know, get it at a new level to elevate their wokeness.
Yeah, I tend to see from them that they like to do things until the point until it gets them uncomfortable, and then they step aside.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even a guy who I do admire from back in the day, Robert Kennedy. He's a senator and he was the Attorney General under John Kennedy. Even he said, "Man, I hate liberals." He said, "Man, I can't stand them because they don't do anything. They do a lot of talking. They do a lot of empathizing with their mouths, but they don't actually do anything." Or if they do something, they do it right up to a point where they get uncomfortable and then they step back. And then, you know what I'm saying? So they don't follow through. So I understand about your, about your situation, about your viewpoint of liberals. You know what I'm saying? So I understand.
Yeah. Very clear and evident now.
Yes. Yeah. Mr. Steve, I'm tossing it back to you, sir.
Thanks, Tip. I never thought I was going to get another question in there with me, Terry, but that's my partner. I enjoy listening. I think it's a level of uncomfortability that even we as African Americans have about ourselves. I think that's an issue. I think many of us don't want to associate with our Blackness. We have moments we want it, and then other moments we really don't want it. We don't want you to tell them that they're really oppressing us every day in every aspect. Like there's not anything that they don't attempt in our lives to oppress us. We got COVID, come back next week. We'll see if that's really COVID. Like we get turned away when nobody else gets turned away. So I enjoyed seeing that. I think African Americans will be just as uncomfortable with this film because they never want to see themselves oppressing their own. Because for me, he could have just been a white, light-skinned white brother. And they're actually, because I think we oppress ourselves in moments of policing, we oppress ourselves in moments of economics, and we oppress ourselves. So when I saw it, I really thought there were two oppressors happening. And oftentimes when we look at it, we can't own the fact that, you know what, we take on the role of the oppressor and oppress our own. And are many times, you know, particularly in uniform, can be and start with the mob rule. You know, you look at the kids that got jerked out of the car in Atlanta. I mean, come on, what was that? Their brothers standing by. And you really have it. So I think that's probably leading to even more uncomfortability because it's true. We have been complicit in our being silent and oppressing our own. So to have it flipped, and then know that you participated in a flip, I think it makes people, even Black people, uncomfortable. For white folk, I'm not sure. I mean, for them, it's a movie. For me, it's truth. I think that the difference is this is truth. Whether you want to talk about it, I want to see you live it. And I think that's what you kind of did in a classic for those who are on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube watching Rolling Out News Report, you know, Black Like Me, a lot of classic ideas that people really have not gotten into until now you're putting it in a movement. So I see this kind of being a classic at some point where people can really talk about flip, you know, versus Big in a movie where somebody shrinks. Because in this movie, you know, they're always making us shrink. So Big would have done this. It's like, you know, all of a sudden, every time you're around white people, we shrink. Yeah, that's really how we feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Y'all want to shrink us every time. We're just Black. You know, and I think even from an editorial standpoint, Terry, we should advocate, if you're going to say Black, then you got to say white. You know, when they talk about the Black man was killed in Brunswick, but they didn't never say by 2 other white men. They never claimed or said who they were. So even those omissions right now are the kind of discussions we need to be having, because I love the genius. So Tiffany, for me, it's not so much as the hope, it's the movement that you want to have, because I see this film more as a movement than just hope, but I see it as a movement from creators who want to move their vision forward. What is your vision moving forward, both Tiffany and Jack?
Jack, you want to start?
Oh no, ladies first.
Oh, okay.
We started with you, Tiffany.
Okay, guys, started
We want to get you involved, and Terry gave me that look that says Tiffany first.
Okay, thanks, Terry. All right. We have started working on it from a series perspective because there are more stories to tell. It's unfortunate that this is so relevant. Like I said, I sat down and started writing this with Jack's. He gave me some notes and from his creativity because he's like, I want to do this. And he gave me his thoughts and I started writing the script, and that was September 2016. I'm thinking about Trayvon, and I'm thinking about Sandra Bland, and I'm thinking about all of these folks who've passed away or really been killed, murdered, and George Floyd hasn't even happened yet. And it's still very relevant. That's the sad part. So the movement is like, there's so many more stories to tell with this. We would like to tell those stories. We would like to tell our stories. We're storytellers. So we like to tell stories that have a meaning, that have, that make people think, that really go there. So, thinking about, sorry, I'm dropping things in my office, thinking about, just even the young woman in the story and expanding upon that, and just getting more eyes on this and getting more people, who can feel it and, take it in like you guys. We want as many people as possible to see this. And then we just want the opportunity to expand on the story. So, that's the movement we would like to see. We would like to see some change. Like Jack talked about getting into institutions and other places where it really does, I would love for it to even affect some policy change. Because by day, I'm in public health, and I have a career by day and I'm in a different setting and environment. And, I'd like to see some other folks, whether it's in corporate America and schools and institutions, use this as a teachable tool and, watch it grow and really evoke some change. I know I have a lot of lofty goals for it. I know it's very ambitious.
Well, hold on. You're on Rolling Out news report. And you went to an HBCU.
Yes.
And you've got to recognize the fact that if you don't, and Terry's a big spiritual leader, you've got to have vision. So never mute your vision. It doesn't make them lofty. Part of our entire existence is they're always muting something that Amy or Becky can decide to do, and she don't have to have a script. She ain't got to have a prototype to get a proto deal. When we talk about numbers, even in this movement, it's like, where's Netflix? Okay, we got it, but where is the funding? I think there have to be numbers. So I don't want you to ever discount. At least I would ask you not to discount and call. We now know with you and Ava and all your other sisters, Issa, all of y'all literally are doing beautiful things. That's not lofty. You're doing what's inside your spirit, what's inside your vision. They're not lofty.
Thank you.
And I'm not minimizing, and I'm not just patronizing at all. I just don't want us ever to reduce ourselves to the world. This is your moment. This is your vision. And somebody needs at this moment to pay for that. That could be a local police department to make some more of these flips so they can understand, here are the other ways you flip us.
Yeah.
And let us flip a few more things for you so you can experience it. And Terry has a few friends, the African American police group nationally. I could see that as a training because some people don't understand it, or they say it's a police community policing. So I think there are lots of places, but you have a great vision here. The fact that you have given it to the public right now, I think you've got to get in front of as many foundations to, and call them on the carpet. Hey, y'all been waiting, you've been looking. We have an entire program ready and willing to move forward. We noticed that there's not enough, and we want you to get involved. And that's everybody. Knock on every door. Let everybody know that you've knocked on every door. I think that's just where we are.
Right.
Because we want to at least say, all y'all do is deny us. We had a product, you chose not to put it up. What's the problem? We want access. I think half this movement right now in protest is access.
Right. No, you're right. Yep.
Beautiful vision. And why shouldn't you want more? I want more every day. Don't we, Terry? We want our community to have more.
Yeah.
That is, if nothing else, we want our community to have more. This is so we can have more. It ain't just you can't breathe when all your bills ain't paid. You can't breathe when you sitting there having dreams and everybody just say, just wait.
Yeah.
Right.
And you watching their companies go out of business, owing other people billions.
Yeah. Or you're watching projects go up that you feel like that could have been my budget. We could have done it for, we could have brought Flip to life for that budget that they spent over here, and they didn't really put any effort into it, Echoing what Tiffany said, we want to turn this into a series. If there are subtle hints at a bigger universe within the film, if you go back and watch again, you'll notice things like in the classroom scene, if you look behind the teacher, the map on the wall is inverted. Africa is up on top. It's considered the top of the world, and all the other countries are smaller on the bottom. And you look at, it says President MLK on the board. And we talk about JFK as a civil rights leader. So the goal is to make this a series for a streaming or a cable network so that people can really live with it for a while. I mean, I recently watched, because I missed it the first go around, I watched Watchmen, and I want people to, to dive in there, look at all the sub context and all the symbolism and everything else that comes along with it, because this is something, like I said, we've been living with for 3.5, almost 4 years. And there's a lot that we can build out from the project to include a lot of those stories that we've been talking about. We're talking about, housing practices, to voter suppression, to all the things that come along with being a Black person in America. And to just show one piece of it, just one little piece of it, we tried to figure out how to squeeze as much as we could into 17 minutes. But there's so much more. So the goal is to go, far and wide with this, make a lot of people uncomfortable and convert some mentalities, and hopefully people can start having conversations that will improve their outlook and their involvement.
Well, we really appreciate you bringing that. I'm going to let Terry close us out. This has been just want to applaud your efforts to really bring this forward. Terry, take us out.
Well, I just wanted to mention that I think that Mr. Law enjoys taking us on a tour. Because every time he comes back on, he's in a different spot. So yeah. So I just think he enjoys giving on tours, you know what I'm saying? But that's all good. I enjoyed the movie because it was provocative, and it kind of, like I said, jolted the senses. And so it was different. And I think that's what you need when you have something that's jolting and there's a message behind it, just like a Jordan Peele came at you in a different way. And Get Out scared the hell out of me, because I could put myself into that situation.
Yeah.
Especially when I was stationed in Europe in the military, and I dealt with different nationalities. And I'm thinking that could have been me. So yeah, see what I'm saying? You get into somebody's house and never come out again. So what I'm trying to say is that you came at this reminds me of that, where you came at it in a different way, an old subject, but in a different way. And that's what I thought was beautiful about it. So I congratulate you guys, and I want, so I bless you on your future endeavors in terms of getting more eyes on this, so more people can digest it and just let it course through their system. Just let it marinate in their soul, and then see what it produces, whatever comes back out. You know what I'm saying? So Thank you very much for coming to appear on the show, and thank you for allowing us to look at the show. Thank you very much, and good luck in the future on whatever direction that you choose to go in terms of this series, because it looks like it's already going to get done. Y'all not thinking about it, y'all doing it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. And then, you know what I'm saying? And then while you're getting this movie made, you know, then Mr. Law will get, you know, a second gig being a tour guide. And then we can...
Right.
High five from my provider.
You know what I'm saying? So, but I wanted to thank you for that. And, you know, just good luck in the future. And thank you for coming on Rolling Out News to share your story. And we definitely will have to do something in a different space at another time, you know, with this particular project, so we can get more eyes on this project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Well, for everybody out there, this is Rolling Out News. We hope that you all go out and at least take a view of Flipped. We are proud of these Hampton graduates who've come along with this genius idea of flipping the dimensions, many dimensions that you may or may not know that exist within your soul. So take an inventory, continue to protest, continue your uprising. We'll end the same way as we ended last night, and that is, you don't have to be in the street, but you do have to be in the struggle. I'm Untitled Steed and Terry Shropshire, the Flip crew. We're out of here tonight on the Rolling Out News Report. Thanks, everybody. Peace.
Peace. Thank you.